Today we're going to learn how to put all the things you've learned together into one face. You've learned how to draw the eyes, the nose, the mouth all separately, although you didn't learn how to draw the ears, but you can pick up that pretty quickly. You've learned how to draw all the separate facial features, and now we're going to put them together on one face. So choose a portrait of somebody that has noticeable changes in value. This one is a person I know. Their name is Kit, and they had a birthday over the quarantine time, so they couldn't have their birthday party, which was a bummer. So I thought I would do their portrait. So the picture itself is does not have as much contrast as I would like. I'm going to use it anyway. I do see, I see like there's darks here, darks there, but you definitely don't want to choose a photo that's really washed out, like the same kind of gray. These are some examples of faces. This face here has a lot of shadow on one side rather than the other. That's kind of nice. This face has a lot of shadow here, which is nice to draw. So this is all about putting all the facial features together and knowing where they are on the face. So I'm just going to take my HB pencil for now. And if you tend to draw really light, actually I'm going to tend to draw really dark, you're going to want to use like a 3H to lay things out, and don't press hard, okay? The same rule of measuring, the rules of measuring that we mentioned in previous videos apply to this. So just use what you've learned so far, use that knowledge and that practice to put everything together, and don't be too intimidated. So depends on the person, not everybody's the same, but all of our facial features, so from the bottom of the lip to the top of the eyebrows, that's usually the same distance as from the top of the eyebrows to what we see as the top of the head, up there. And let's see if that's true for Kit. So I outlined their face here, and I'm just going to move it over here. We'll just check it out to see if that's roughly the idea. And some people have bigger foreheads than other people. This isn't really a set rule. But that's true. So I just put two little marks. I put a mark for where her top of her eyebrows are. And I put a little mark for the bottom underneath her lower lip. And if I move it up, you can see that where the head ends back there, this distance from the top of the head to the top of the eyebrow is actually the same distance as from the top of the eyebrow to the bottom of the lower lid. So that is true for their case. Again, some people might have larger foreheads. Okay. As you can see, we all keep things in mind. It's like the eyes will line up with the top of the ears, usually. So right here, if I were to put a ruler and connect the top of the ears, they actually go almost through the center of the eyes, okay? The bottom of the ears kind of graze the top of their lip, okay? And the nose ends up kind of somewhere not quite in the middle, the bottom of the nose. So use your newly practiced skills of observation and spatial relationships and apply them to what you're doing here. If you don't have a fancy plastic sheet, you can always find, sometimes in binders, random binders that people aren't using anymore, there's a sheet protector that you can use the plastic from that, or you could use plastic wrap. It's nice to have sort of a reference, a see-through tracing of where things are, just to check for yourself as you go. Not to use as a vice, just as a reference tool, a measuring tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the shape of the head. I'm going to put the head in there before I put the facial features. So the borders of the face. And I want to make sure I have enough space. Hard to squish everything on the camera, but I'm going to start drawing the jawline here. I'll start with that line first. I'm just glancing back and forth between what I'm doing with my pencil and the shape of the face. Think back to our contour exercises where you were pretending like there was a little ant crawling along the edge of something, and that little ant is the tip of your pencil. So pretend that is happening, like when we practiced it, and it will help you. Just gonna, now I have my picture lined up with my paper. I'm gonna take a ruler, go underneath the chin, try to keep the ruler straight. That's where the chin ends, right there. So I need the jawline to start curving in towards that reference line that I just made. I'm gonna measure this out. Again, I always use just scrap paper to kind of figure out the width and the length of things, the distance between things, all those spatial relationships. So I don't make something too big. I've already been overzealous with how I was gonna size up this part of the chin. So this is what I have here. I'm just gonna bring it over here. I was already making the chin, but I'm already making the jaw way too big. So please put those reference lines in for yourself. Get your hard eraser, your vinyl eraser. Just erase out as you go. I'm gonna go back to this little curve that I made. Started making for that side of their jaw. I'm gonna do a little measuring again. Just erasing out my marks that I made on this paper so I don't confuse myself. Pretty good. And continue, that's where the eyes are. I'm gonna put a line, put a nice light horizontal line for where the eyes are gonna be, okay? And also put a line for where the nose is going to be. You can even take your pencil, or one of your pencils, put it underneath the nose here, and then put a little mark. It's about right there. Having many pencils is very handy. And I'm going to put a little mark right there. I'm going to check this chin distance later. For now, I'll keep it. I think I might go a little bit lower. So this is the nose. I'm going to roughly put in nostrils right there. And then, is this the bottom of the lip? Yeah, that's the bottom of the lip. This is the middle of the lip. 2 lip lines like that. And then the top of the lip is about right there. So map it out for yourself first, so that you don't want to just put in the eyes first and finish the eyes and then move on to the nose and finish the nose. You want to map things out first. Right now I'm just kind of figuring out the distance between the eyes. Now the glasses are definitely a different story. I'm going to pretend right now as if they're not wearing glasses, and then I will put their glasses on afterwards. So I'm going to measure out on my paper the distance, just like we did in the video of how to draw the eyes. I'm going to put a little mark at the corners, and by my corner I mean the very corner with the tip of the tear duct. Little line there. A line for a little dot where the other outer corner is of the eye. So I'll do it for the left eye here as well. And then I'll just put maybe 2 longer lines so that I don't confuse myself. Those are where, roughly, where the iris of the eye exists. Like that. And then I move my reference paper over. And I check out what I did on my rough estimate. It's pretty good. I am going to put the sides of the face on. So I'll put the, this is their side of the face there, this is the side of the face their face over here. And I'm gonna come back over here, and it looks pretty accurate what I had so far for the sides of their face. I'm gonna make some dots where my dots are from the paper. So I transferred over the measurements from the photo to the paper. And now I can play around with the shape of the eyes and draw those. I do want to erase away some of my reference lines. I can erase away this line on the sides. I don't need those right now. I can erase those in the middle there. I do kind of want to keep that reference line in the middle of the eyes for right now, just to have. You will notice, again with the eyes, you're gonna think that they're a perfect football shape, and the top half of the eye is the same distance as the bottom half, and that's not the case usually. We're a little squinchier from the bottom. It's more of an arc at the top. So just keep that in mind. So these are the corners of their eye. And if I were to draw a straight line, I can actually just cover it up with some paper. If I were to put a straight line across the corners of that right eye, you'd see that there's a lot of the top half of the eye that still exists. I'll take that paper away, and I'm gonna do it in reverse here. So there's not much to that bottom half of the eye from the corners. So don't drop the eye down too much, the shape of the eye, as you're trying to get it right. Most of the shape of the eye pops up from the corners like a rainbow. I'm just gonna draw with a darker pencil so you can see what my lines are. But you should not be using a B pencil for this, for sure. Okay, you should be using an H pencil and drawing lightly. So from that very the left corner of that eye, I'm gonna dip down a little bit, but not a lot, because this is the middle line right here. Between the corners, so this is the connecting the two corners together. I have less of an eye of the eye underneath that and more above it. Okay. Sometimes people's eyes, one of them is more open than the other. I do want to make sure that this is pretty even, so I'm just gonna make a little mark right here so that I make sure that I don't make this right eye too high as I draw it. These outlines will disappear later, okay? There are no outlines on the face. I repeat, there are no outlines on the face. But I want you to see what I'm drawing. Okay, put in the eyes. I'm going to draw the iris shape now. Well, let me check it. Let's check it with my magical little handy dandy clear sheet. Pretty good. I went out a little bit too far with this eye, but that's pretty much on. Remember that when you're drawing eyes, you're not drawing them, that circle for the iris, you're not going straight up. You're not going straight up. You have to curve it around. Your eyeballs are not square. The iris of your eyes are not square as they go up underneath that upper eyelid. So I'm not going to draw a straight line here. I'm going to curve it. It's going to curve up and under. I can play around with the shape of this sphere later. Pay attention to how much space you see between the corner and the iris, because that's going to be important. So just keep looking back and forth between the photo and your drawing to get that right. Pretty good. I'm going to draw again, there are no lines. I'm going to make these lines disappear, but I'm going to draw that line for the upper lid right here. Again, I'm ignoring the glasses for right now. They have glasses on, but I'm ignoring them. I can go ahead and put the pupil in. Of course, it depends on what the lighting is for that person in the photo. Their pupils could be bigger or smaller, so pay attention to that. But remember from the eye video that the pupil needs to exist in this very center of the completed circle that surrounds the pupil, the iris circle. So it has to be in the center, and it may look weird to you, but if it looks weird, it's probably right. So go with that. I'm going to move on to drawing, just mapping out the eyebrows real quick. The eyebrows end, if that's the corner of the eye, the eyebrows end a little farther over, somewhere between the corner of the eye and the side of the face, halfway between the corner of the end of the eyebrow happens, about right there. I'm not worried about the hairs of the eyebrow right now. I'm just kind of mapping out where everything is going. Okay, looks pretty good. I'm actually going to adjust the jawline just a little bit. Adjustments can be made easily. Just sort of fix a line like this. I just went over the line. And then I can erase out what I don't know is not true. All right. Now for that weird little, I call it the seagull shape. So when we were little, we drew seagulls like this. And oh, you can't see that in the video. There we go. Seagulls like this in the distance. It's kind of like that, but it's like drops down and rounds a little bit. That's the nose, the tip of the nose. Now, yep, so I'm gonna go back to the nose. I'm gonna put the nostrils in roughly, just so I can figure things out. I can also do some measuring here. Always measure, it just makes it, I mean, if you really wanna challenge yourself, you know, I do this just to make sure. I can draw first, I can draw them first, and then I can measure. And see how I did. So I'm going to put a little line on the sides, on the wings, on the outer wings of the nose. You bring it over here. And I know I can't go any farther than that. Pretty good. Not bad, not bad. Might do some adjustments to the nostrils later, but that's what I have so far. Of course, it doesn't look like them at all right now, but that's because I'm just figuring out the outlines, the hypothetical outlines. What I do need to do, that reminds me, you need to put in a vertical line. We're talking about horizontal reference lines for the eyes. You need to put a vertical line through, in between the eyes. So right now, in between the eyes is about 1 inch for me. I'm gonna put a little dot at a 1/2 inch in between the eyes. If I line up my ruler with the bottom edge of the paper, this ruler will always be straight. So that's a little trick for you. But I'm gonna make a vertical reference line to make sure things have lined up. Okay. I should have an equal amount of nostril here and there. And right now it looks like there's a little less right here than over there. So I need to shift this a little bit. This looks good. I just need to change, I need to shift this nostril. It's going out a little too far. I'm gonna work with the lips now. If I put this, when I put the vertical line for the face in, I will know if the nose is even, like there's equal nose on the left and on the right, and I will also nose if the lips are even. I've got enough lips on the left and lips on the right. I can use that vertical reference line for the very dip. There's a dip that happens on the top upper lip. That's where the vertical line crosses through. So I'll put, that's where the valley is right there, the bottom of the valley. You want to make sure that if you were to draw vertical lines from the side, the wing of the nose, down through the lips like this, you want to make sure you have enough, the lips go out far enough over here. So it's always good to kind of draw some more vertical lines for yourself, reference lines, so that you make that happen. So I think this side got a little, I think things were a little off as I was going. So they have a slight smile. So it goes down like this, and then there's a little bit of a dip coming up. So it goes up and then down. Up and then down, and dips kind of in like that. So I'm just gonna measure out some things. I'm gonna measure the distance between the bottom tip of their nose and then the top of that upper lip, the little valley. So it's about a half an inch. So I'm just gonna check to see what I have. What do I have here? I have a little too much distance. So from the bottom of the nose to the top of the lip, it's more. It should be here. That should be where the top of the lip is. So I have too much space. And that's okay, because I'm just mapping things out right now. It's not a big deal. So now I'm going to change up the top lip, and it's going to be up here. Like that. So I don't want to finish those lips and then all of a sudden, like finish them meaning I shade everything, and then realize that I have too much space between the nose and the lips. So you need to map everything out first for yourself before you make any final decisions. I also want to measure from the bottom of the lip to the chin to make sure that distance is correct. So right now that's about a little over 1 inch. Tripod's in the way. So it's about right here. So I need to adjust the bottom of the chin. Their chin is not, there's too much space down there right now. I've laid out the face. I'm ready to start shading. Well, I gotta do the ears, of course. So figure out where the ears fall on the face. So if I put a ruler underneath like this, I can see that the ears, if I have a horizontal line connecting the bottom of the ears, they kind of graze the top of the lips. So I'm gonna just put my ruler down on top of the lips, put some little marks for those ears. And I'll also take my scrap paper and I will figure out, there's the bottom of the ear and there's the top of the ear. That's the distance they have to go. There we go. Right there. Are their ears the same? Yes. So these are where the ears are located. There they are. Looks kind of strange because they don't have the top of their head. So I'm gonna put that in. It's hard to see on this because the background is so dark, but this is kind of an outline of their head. You gotta go from, that's where their hair kind of poofs out. But since they have shorter hair, that's basically their head shape. So I'm gonna draw that in. Again, the distance of the face is about the same. So the distance of the facial features, so the bottom of the lip and the top of the eyebrows, that's the same distance from the top of the eyebrows to where I see the back of the head. So I can just do that for myself if I want. If I know this is the bottom of the lip, and this is the top of the eyebrow, I need that much head space. It's pretty good. We'll talk about hair later. Hair is fun. Hair is fun to draw. Head goes back behind here, their hair, so it's kind of fills in like this. And then their hairline, they have some hair here. And then it goes up. Like that. You can measure this distance from where the hair starts to the eyebrow. Eyebrow, hairline, eyebrow, hairline. Pretty good. Maybe it goes over a little bit, kind of fills in a little bit more there. You are going to start shading. You feel like this curve is a little curvier. It cuts in a little bit more. Underneath the chin, the neck. Yeah, I can put a neck on. The neck doesn't start unless you're a beefcake at the gym. You don't really have your neck start here. It starts a little bit in, like that. I do have a B pencil, and that's fine to use for underneath the chin here. I'm gonna start shading that. There's going to be some reflected light that happens. That'll be a little deceiving to you, a little confusing. So right now, there's dark, it's definitely dark here. And then there's a little reflected light on the chin there and a little shadow above it. So if that exists, you need to take that in consideration and draw it like that. So underneath the chin, that is the darkest area besides the lip, the middle of the lips, and then inside the nose and inside the eyes and the eyebrows and the hair. Nowhere in your drawing, unless there's high contrast, should this gray exist. So these are very, very light grays for the face. You should not be using any B pencil on the actual skin tone unless the skin tone is darker. Shadow is here. When you're shading, you cannot shade quickly. Don't think of this like, oh, I gotta get this done and start shading super, super hard, making your lines just separate from each other. You should be shading just like a little printer, going back and forth until it fills in that space. And you should always check to see if the gray that you made with your pencil matches the gray in the photograph. And again, printer ink and graphite are different black to white values anyway, but try to just get as close as you can. I feel satisfied with that gray that I've produced. I'm gonna actually skip ahead and not finish the neck right now and move up here. I wanna start at the top Not quite the hair, actually. I'll save that for last. I'm gonna start here and go down and work down. I don't wanna go down, up. I don't wanna go from the bottom up because then I start smudging things. You can always put paper down on top of your drawing as you go to make sure that you don't smudge things by accident. So I'm gonna take a lighter pencil, take my 4H, and I'm gonna slowly start to fill in the skin tone, okay? I have to stay with the shape of the face as I shade. It has to be rounded everywhere. If you start shading back and forth flat like this, it's gonna flatten everything out. So pretend that you're touching someone's face as you're shading. And especially for the cheeks, and the chin, you're gonna make it rounded, okay? The chin itself will be rounded. When you were shading the nose in practice, you were making sure that you stayed rounded, okay? You have to do that. Cheeks here, rounded, okay? I'm gonna erase out that vertical line. If you press super hard with that line, you won't be able to take it out. So please make sure that you don't press too hard. I only pressed hard so you can see it. I actually have a line that I pressed too hard at some point. I forget, it may have been a reference line I was trying to get you to be able to see, but I can't erase that out anymore. And I don't think that this spot is going to be that dark as I have it now, so that little random line might show up. So that's why you gotta press super light with your reference lines and your reference marks. So as you can see with the forehead, I'm still not going straight back and forth. I am rounding it as I get to the eyebrows. What I'm doing is laying down the first layer of the lightest value of gray. I can go back in and erase out all the white that I see, or the lightest, like I can erase out certain parts that are lighter than what I'm putting down right now, but I need to put an all over light shade first. And then after I do this, I will take some paper towel and blend, or you can use your blender if you have your blender. So for under the eyes, I'm gonna make sure that I keep it round. The shading is rounded. And then as I get to the cheek, I'm kind of rounding like this. Do you see my pencil? Rounding. Kind of swoops like a little S almost. I'm gonna make sure that the apple of the cheek doesn't disappear. I'm sculpting it. Drawing is sculpture. So for the nose, I'm gonna start shading, making a little arc like this. My pencil's going like this, back and forth, so that I stay with the shape of the nose bridge. I don't wanna go back and forth and make it flat. Just like you did in the practice. Nose. Then I'm gonna take my pencil and shade from that little arc they made, made this arc kind of rounded shading technique going up. And then I'm gonna go from that down. Think of it like a plateau, and then these are the sides of the plateau, the mountain, the sides of the mountain. You might be saying to yourself, what's the point of doing all of this directional shading with such purpose if you're going to blend it and kind of smudge it together at the end? You are going to smudge in the same way with the blender. So get used to shading in a directional way when you're shading anything that has three-dimensionality to it. I'm going to start shading from from inside here on the inside of the eye, because your nose goes all the way up to your eyebrows. This is where your nose starts, right here. So I'm going to start shading going this way with the shape. Their glasses are sitting on this nose bridge right here that goes up and over. So this is definitely a spot that you do not want to ignore the shape, the directional purpose of your shading. Kind of lost the eyebrow, that's okay. You can kind of put it in. Put it in again later with a darker pencil anyway. This is the part of the chin that pops out and you have a darker shadow under there going to the bottom of the lip. So when I'm shading this chin, I'm going to put that in with this first layer of value. Anyway, I'll press hard and then I'll shade with the shape of the chin because it pops out. So I'm going to make my directional shading rounded. I still want to put in some value for the ears. There's more light hitting the earlobe here, so I need to keep in mind that this value of gray is darker than that value of gray. So the gray that I'm putting down now with my pencil on the ear is going to be the ear value, and I'm going to need to bump up the value here. If there's a difference between your values, you need to make sure that is obvious. Take some paper towel or my blender and I'll blend this value, this light value kind of together so it's more smooth. I want to make sure that I'm blending just like I was shading the shape. Shading with the shape, the direction of the face. So if it's rounded, I'm making sure I round with the paper towel. Or blender. I really only want to do this for the, try to only do this for the lightest skin tone layer. People tend to use the blender a little too much while they're working in sometimes the shading that they've created, the value they created, it was accurate, but when they put the blender on it or the paper towel and they wiped it, pushed with the paper towel or the blender, it kind of disappeared in that lovely area that you had taken so much time shading, ends up kind of getting washed away. So that was my lightest value. I'm going to go back in with my kneadable eraser and maybe lighten up some spots. Depends on the person's skin tone. Okay. So I know that this gray is a little darker than some of the forehead. So I'll take my needle eraser and just touch down, lighten it up on the forehead a little bit. Like that. And I'll go and maybe that's pretty accurate for under the eyes, I'm not sure. I'll just lighten up a little bit under the eye. Right now, I'm definitely gonna lighten up right there for the chin. The chin starts popping out. It's gonna look a little too light, like I took too much out right now, but I can go back in and shade on top of it if I want to. Take a little bit off the tip of the nose there. I'm taking the highlights out. I'm working with the highlights. Right here is really light. That actually might be similar gray, but I'll just take it out anyway. Right now, the earlobe needs to lighten up a little bit. Maybe over here. Okay, that's it though. I kind of lightened up the lightest grays, and I'm gonna go back I was using a 4H before. I'll go back in with a 2H, see if that changes some stuff. And I'm going to focus on the next level of gray. So a little darker, wherever it's a little darker than what I just laid down here. So that would include everything that's not these grays, the highlight grays. So that would be over here, under the chin, under there, over here, on the sides of the forehead here, because it gets shadowy, more shadowy over here. I might actually go back to the 4H pencil. I feel like that's getting a little too dark too quick. So if I just, again, if you just add layers of the same pencil on top of each other, they will naturally, that area will naturally get darker for you. So depending on the person's skin tone, you could be using mostly your 4H, 2H, HB pencils only. Maybe the B for the darkest, 4B for the inside the nose, or you could be using your HB, your B, your 2B, and your H. So it depends on the person's skin tone that you're drawing. But I am pressing a little bit harder with this 4H pencil, which I used for the first layer of skin tone, the lightest layer, and it is getting darker for me and not too dark. I just need to make sure that when I'm shading, I'm not skipping really fast and shading quickly across like this. Okay, if you do that, you're going to create little gaps, little distinguishable gaps that you're going to need to go and fill in, and when you try to do that, it's harder to fill them in. So try your best to go back and forth like a little printer and not skip ahead. It's going to be tempting, you're just going to want to jump to get it done, but that's not how this is going to work. So the shadowy area for her cheek kind of goes to over here, right there. The shadowy area for their cheek goes to about right there. And then you see natural kind of poof to the cheek right here. The lines of the, between the space of your face and your cheek exists, is that, again, it's not a line, it's a shadow. So that's the shadowy area here. But I need to blend this line. It can't just exist as a weird darker line. I have to kind of fuzz away to the left of that line. I have to fuzz away a little bit to the right. Usually, like right now, it's light right here, and then it's dark from that line that way. So I'm really gonna start blending from that imaginary line that way. So from this line this way. So I'm going lightly as I travel that way so that it blends and rounds. Under the nose, you'll have some shadow, no doubt. They have more of a shadowy area because the light is coming from this direction. So there's a shadow for their nose. And there usually is a little dip. I forget what this is called. People's faces, but that exists there. So I'm going to put a little shadowy spot right there. I'm going to continue my shadow. It's going to look like she has snot under, it's going to look like they have snot in the nose or something like that, but that's not true. It's tempting to go super dark at first for everywhere you know it's very dark, but try your best to start with the lightest gray value and then go darker from there. So I'm going to continue bumping up the gray value to a little darker in spots that I know that I can see are darker, and then leaving areas where I know it is the lightest gray. So I'm leaving those areas untouched. I'm going to change up my pencil to an H pencil for underneath here. It might be tempting to say, oh, that's a B, but it's really not. This is just a darker level of H. So I'm going to use just an H instead of a 4H, and as you can see, that's already getting pretty dark. Pressing harder with your H pencils or creating more layers of H pencil on top of itself will create a medium gray value without going too dark. So keep that in mind. If you are heavily reliant on the B pencils, that's bad. There's lots of little value changes that happen on the bottom part of the lip, and then this area here in between the bottom lip and then the chin where it pops out. So I need to pay attention to those differences of gray that happen. I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to continue with my layering with my 4H pencil to make it darker in places. So this is the second lightest gray value as I'm going around. I just put down and blended the lightest gray, and now this is the second lightest. So it's the next darkest. I'm putting the H pencil on top of where I pressed with the 4H pencil really hard in this area, and it's just bringing it up just enough that I like what it's doing. It looks like it's matching pretty well right there. It wasn't matching quite yet with just the 4H pencil pressing really hard, so I just added a light layer of H on top of it, and that bumped up the gray value just slightly. So your H pencils work together in a variety of ways for you. I know that it's lighter here and lighter here, so I'm going to start shading here, here, there, and then through here, and I'm going to avoid these two spaces. I'm going to go around the chin so it pops out a little bit more. So this is the highlight right here. I'm going to start shading a little bit more underneath that highlight, maybe fuzzing in, adding a little bit of light gray kind of around it so it doesn't look like a weird splotch, like just a bright splotch. That's called blending. That's what I mean by blending. Nothing should look like a weird pocket, or nothing should look like it has an outline. So I'm bumping up with the 4H again, and I'm just kind of going over it to see if that's enough. I'm going to take my H, and I'm going to make this shadowy area right here, at the very bottom of the chin. Keeping in mind that there's a little bit of a reflection right here, and it's lighter at the very, very bottom edge of that chin. Now that I made this darker splotch, I need to blend it. So I need to fuzz a little bit, going to the left, and I need to do it above that splotch. So I'm just kind of making circles-ish with my pencil, kind of fuzzing away what it looked like a dark puddle. Now it's blending a little bit better. Keep your pencils sharp. Dull pencils don't help you when you're trying to... Dull pencils will help you when you're trying to shade a bigger area, but for making things distinctly dark and between dark and light, you really need a sharp pencil. So I'm going to put in that line for in between the lips. Then I'm going to start shading going up. I'm going to take a look at the space between the the distance between the side of the cheek and the corner of the lips from what I have and what the picture is. I think it's a little bit off. So I'm going to put a mark at the corner of the lip and then the side of the face on the left. I'm going to bring it over and it's true. I am a little bit off. I need to bring this cheek in a little bit. It should be about here. It's too wide. And I think there's not enough distance right there. So I'm going to check that. Put a little mark on the side of the face and then the corner of the mouth on the right. I'm going to bring it over and I notice that I am a little bit off and I have to come over a little bit. That's where I need to be. That shifts what I was doing with the ear, but that's okay. I didn't really finish the ear at all. I also want to measure the distance between the corner of the eye and the side of the face too, so that they're not too far off. That looks okay. So I should be taking, that should be fine. That means that the neckline is going to go in a little bit more. So I need to erase here and move it over a little bit. Just going to adjust the ear. It's going to be a little bit smaller. It doesn't stick out as much on that side. Now I'm going to speed things up, but basically I'm continuing with building the layers of value. I'm going to increase them in certain spots. Here, especially the sides of the face. And I'll start working on finishing the lips here and the nose, working out those spots. Okay, but I'm going to start with an H pencil, which seems like it's going a little too dark on top, so I'm going to go to a 3H pencil. I started the original layer with a 4H pencil, so the 3H pencil will be a little bit darker on top. So I'm bumping up the value here, making it a little bit darker, going in. That's already kind of dark. Because this looks like it pops out, because this is not dark enough. This isn't dark enough yet. But once I darken here, then I will be able to see that this doesn't pop out as much or be as noticeable. Looking at this again, being away from it for a couple of minutes, I do notice that I need to bump up the contrast under the lip. So I'm going to take the H pencil and try it on top, see if that makes it a little bit darker for me. As soon as you start darkening certain areas that need to be a shade darker, you're going to notice that what you thought was the darkest area before is no longer going to be the case. It will need to be bumped up, the contrast. That's when I say bumping up is just darken it a little bit. I'm feeling like the top lip that I've drawn is a little too thin on the left and on the right, so I'm just going to extend, just going to bring this center lip line down a little bit and shade it going down a little bit more, and that will just make this look higher by coming down with my line rather than going up. I will in a second, but that's going to help it. Take my B and go on the top lip first to see if that's the correct value. I I've used a B on the upper lip. I'm just gonna take a 4H. You can use your lighter pencils because they're a harder density graphite and push on top of that softer B pencil and it'll smooth it out. That's the magic of the H pencils. That's kind of their trait, is that they can push the graininess that occurs from the B pencils together and smooth things out. Taking the 6B and just going over that middle line between the upper lip and the bottom lip, and then kind of fuzzing on the top, blending it, going up. I just want that to be a little bit darker. Then I'm going to take my 4H pencil and smooth out. I just had to correct the top lip a little bit. Smooth out the graininess of the B pencil, the 6B pencil I was using, and the B pencil. We work on the little lines for the lip texture with an H pencil. If that's too dark, I'll go to a 2H. It's important that you understand that you need to blend two areas of gray together. I made this darker on the side. I need to blend these two spaces together. So that means that this, I can see a distinction between this area and that area because it looks like there's a stripe of gray right here. So I need to blend this area right here. So what I do is I use like way less pressure than what I was using here. In this, from that line over, I'm just sort of what I call fuzzing it, just giving it a light, super light pressure, and you continue to do that until it looks like that area has been blurred. The two areas have been blurred together. That's important. You don't want to see little stripes on the face. You don't want to see bands of gray. You want things to transition. You want the gray to transition. Once I put in that upper lip and it was that dark, which is true because that's how it is, then I realized that this area was way too light still. So that's going to happen to you constantly. You're going to have to continue to go over areas that you already shaded to bump up that contrast. Because once you darken and you bump up the shade of gray in one area, the area next to it will need some updating until everything has been tweaked and altered so it's accurate. It's like you're dialing up the areas of value to be darker, or if you go too dark, a lighter. Mostly go darker. So that means that this shadow is too light now. Remember that in the nostril cave, it's the darkest right here. Okay, so make sure it's dark, just like if you were looking at an actual cave, it would be darkest at the top, because that's going farther back. And then as you go towards the front, that would be lighter for you. I'm gonna put some paper over what I've done so far so I don't smudge it because I'm headed to the eyes. I know I said we're talked about them, but it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're going to be using the paper to make sure it doesn't smudge. This gray that exists under the eye is darker than the gray on the cheek. I need to keep that in mind as I'm making that gray happen. I'm just using a B under the eye, and now I'm using a 2H to kind of smooth things out. I need to blend this space into that space, or lighten certain areas. First I'm gonna darken at the edges there. Just shade a little bit more going out. This is a 2H pencil that I was using to smooth the B pencil with. That'll look less weird later as I complete the eye. The only parts of the eye that will have anything darker than an HB are the eyelashes, potentially, or the iris if they have darker, definitely the pupil, or the iris if they have darker colored eyes. For any highlights that are in the eye, just outline that little white dot that you see so you don't end up shading on top inside the pupil. Remember that there's shadow. If there's shadow under the upper eyelid, keep your pencils sharp and make sure you put that in. So I'm going to put a shadow at the top of the iris underneath that lid because that is got to the point where I wanted to put in the glasses. So what I'm going to do is actually use my pencil eraser. That's what I call it. But it could be your eraser pen. And I'm going to actually draw with my eraser pen. Now I'm going to go back in and basically I took out the rough form of the glasses, and if I need to tweak it a little bit, I'll do that. And I'm going to go back in with some H pencils and kind of fill in the information for the glasses. There's a lot of different value changes that happen in the glasses. There's dark areas that I see, little slivers of dark areas, then I see other medium values, and then values that are close to the face. So things will tend to look like they're disappearing, but if I give a little bit of a differentiation between the two values that are close together, skin value and the glasses value, then that'll be all good. Okay, we gotta talk ears and hair. So if you look at ears, they're not so weird if you divide them up into shapes of shadow. I see a darker shadow up here, that's rounded at the top and it kind of becomes a triangle down at the bottom. Same thing from this side. And then you have little dark kind of shaded areas right here and there. So wherever you see that it is darker, put that shade in. Okay? And don't think too much about it beyond that. If I need to take my needle eraser and just touch down on an area that needs to be lightened, that's perfectly fine. It'll lift away just enough to make it a shade lighter. For hair, you want to build up the lines. It's almost as if you are putting the hair on someone's head individually, strand by strand. So wherever the part is in their hair, the part for their hair is about right here, I will start making my lines going this way. And then on this side, they will go this way. And that takes a variety of pencils, as usual. Just like with the eyebrow hair, you need to use like 2B and also a 6B, depending on how old the person is. So this is the part right here. I'm gonna start building the hair up like this. I know this may seem that it's going to be tedious, and if they have darker hair, you can help yourself out first by just shading the whole area of the head in to a medium gray value. Now I'm going to build up the hair. Now that I have that gray underneath it, I don't have to worry about any white gaps. So I'll take a variety of B pencils, probably choose darker pencils going to the left here. So I've got my 6B, and hair starts growing from the forehead outwards like this, so I need to make sure that I add some little wispies coming in, or going out, I should say. Wherever you see there's a light area, like I see there's a light hair right here, or a group of hair, I'll go dark until that light spot, then I'll skip over it, and then continue on the other side of it. It might look weird at first, but if I kind of fuzz over the top of what I just did, it'll blend in. But I know that's like a lighter spot in their hair. Follow the direction of the hair. The hair should follow the direction of the natural growth pattern. Unless your person's bald. So this is the part to their hair. So all the hairs going to the left are going this way and then down. And then the hair is going to the right. I'm going to build from that part. And just keep overlapping your hairlines. And you can press hard, press light, press hard, press light. And if you do that even with the same pencil, it's going to give you a variety of hair shades. So in here I can definitely see medium gray and then dark gray, and then almost black. So what I'm going to do for that is the same thing. I'm just going to kind of build up the hair. Where I see there's a little V shape of darkness, like right here, like a finger of V. There's a finger of darkness there and there. I'm gonna put that in. Where I see a pocket of shadow in the hair, I'm gonna add that. Start seeing the shapes that happen. Just like with the mountains that you drew in like a paper bag, start seeing shapes within something. And then once I put those in, I can keep adding more hair. Got little wispies coming down here. There's even a couple of wispies going this way, forward. Like that I might fix later. Can also take the eraser, whatever eraser I might have. Eraser pen is perfect. I can take away areas that I know pop out more. Like that. And then if one area ends up being just too light, and I erased out too much, that's okay. That's actually helpful, because now I can take an H pencil and shade back on top a little bit to kind of fade that white hair back into being just a lighter hair. So it's all about layering, and don't think too much with the hair. Just follow how the hair is growing, the direction of the hair. Follow the direction of the hair and you'll be fine. I would continue working with this because their hair is pretty dark, so I have a lot of white little gaps over here that make it seem a little lighter than it is, than their hair is, so I'm just gonna keep on layering. Stepping away from this for a couple minutes, I realized how white this eye is. I actually haven't touched the inside of that eye yet, so once you feel as if you're almost done with the portrait, you're gonna find some spot that you might have forgotten about. And that's fine. I'm gonna continue to work on this. I'm not finished. I'm gonna go in and smooth things out and darken around the eyes, create more shadow inside the glasses, make the glasses more defined, that sort of thing. But this is basically done. So there is your example.